Dharam, who's here with me in the newsroom. Dharam, give us more on this, this development which ANI is confirming at this point, that this attack was in fact carried out from Indian soil only, and even that video that you had mentioned, that short clip that Indian Army had shared, that was minutes before that Operation Sindoor was carried out, that India stands ready. And in that we saw a lot of artillery being used. Now the first assumption was strikes being carried out in POK and Pakistan would have been carried out by the Indian Air Force, but in that video, which was shortly released by the Indian Army before that Operation Sindoor was carried out, we saw artillery being used, tanks being used, and now sources are confirming to ANI that weapon systems and weapons assets of all three forces, Navy, Army and Air Force, were used in this attack. Give us more on how you read this.
Well, Shivan, you're absolutely right. Just on Monday, we had the Indian Air Force Chief and the Navy Chief speak to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and bring him up to speed with the defense readiness of both the Air Force and the Navy. That was just 2 days ago. And 2 days later, we are finding out that the attack that was carried out just a couple of hours ago was a tri-service effort. It was not just the Indian Air Force or just the Indian Army acting standalone. The precision strike was carried out with all the three forces having an active role to play in it. Now, from what we are gauging here, Shivan, is that the weapon system of all three forces were used, that is the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy as well. And this also includes what is otherwise referred to as loitering munitions. Now, loitering munitions would be, it's a weapon system otherwise, easily referred to as a drone and as other remote technology, which is used to identify a specific target before a weapon is launched and the target has been struck. So all the three forces have come together to ensure maximum and best utilization of their weapon system in not just carrying out the strike, but before the strike, preempting the exact locations. We've been talking about this, how the Indian Armed Forces had in the latest identified the terror hotspots that were still active. 42 of them was what we were hearing. About 150 to 200 active terrorists still across the border, across parts of Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Taking all that intelligence input into consideration, the three chiefs of the Indian Armed Forces have come together over the past 15 days to chalk out a plan in terms of how this precision strike needs to be carried out on the 9 sites that it was carried out just a couple of hours ago. So clearly we will be hearing more on this, Shivan. As I mentioned before, that the Indian Armed Forces will be issuing a press conference later in the day. We're expecting that all these details that we've been talking about will come out, that the forces will shed light in terms of the kind of coordination that the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy undertook to carry out this particular strike on terror infrastructure in Pakistan and in POK. Shivan.
Thanks, Dharam. I'll come back to you in a bit as developments continue to pour in. I'll quickly like to just inform our viewers at this point that these are sources which have confirmed to ANI that all three of India's defense forces, the Navy, Army and Air Force, their weapons assets were used in these attacks. The visuals of which we have for you on the screen. Muzaffarabad, which is a location in POK, which was also one of the 9 locations which was targeted by the Indian Armed Forces. It was a attack which is Operation Sindoor was carried out by all three forces combined, the weapon systems, and sources are confirming to ANI that loitering munitions were used. Now, what are loitering munitions? I just want to quickly bring you an understanding of that. Loitering munitions are essentially kamikaze drones. Kamikaze drones are those drones, they will loiter in the air, and once the target is locked in, that is when these suicide drones, they will attack the location and they will explode there and then. Also, what sources are confirming to ANI at this point is that these attacks, they were not carried out anywhere beyond India's borders. India's armed forces, Navy, Army and Air Force, they stayed well within India's borders on Indian soil, and that is from where these attacks were carried out. Operation Sindoor. Sindoor being symbolic of the women who lost their husbands, because Sindoor is something Hindu women put on the center of their foreheads, and this is in the wake of the deadly terror attack which took place in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, where tourists were shot in cold blood by trained fighters, even from the Pakistan elite forces, who came in to Baisaran Meadows and carried out that attack. I'll quickly like to have Idris now with me, who's joining me from Jammu and Kashmir. He's in Srinagar. Idris, from what we've understood, that and this is as per sources. We'll wait for the confirmation to come in from the Indian Armed Forces, as well as they'll carry out their press conference little later in the day. But this attack was carried out from well within the Indian soil. And as you had also shared with us that you yourself had heard jets being scrambling overhead. This was somewhere between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. And little later we heard shelling being carried out between India and Pakistan. This shelling has not been heard. We've only heard small arms fire, ceasefire violations till now. 13th night we've heard shelling, major escalation taking place, and there's also been a report of a lady who was injured in the Poonch district. If you can give us more on the latest on the tensions at the border at this point.
Well, Shivan, two updates I would like to give. The first one is about basically about the airports. The SpiceJet has just announced that due to the ongoing situation, airports in parts of northern India, including Dharamshala, Leh, Jammu, Srinagar and Amritsar, are closed until further notice, which means not only the Srinagar and Jammu airport, but the airports in Leh as well as in other parts of the northern India will be shut for at least a day. That is what has been told by the airline authority of India. On the other hand, what we are seeing, it seems to be a result of the continuous ceasefire violation also, which Pakistan is carrying out in different parts of northern part of Kashmir as well as in the Jammu division. We've also heard one lady has been critically injured in the crossfire in Poonch sector of the Jammu division. She's been shifted to the hospital where her condition is said to be critical. There are few more injuries that are being reported from the same area. We're also hearing from the northern part of Kashmir and Kupwara especially that people who are living very close to the line of control have been asked to evacuate, have been asked to move away from the forward areas. They've been taken to the safer places. They're being shifted to the individual bunkers there so that they remain safe and there is no casualty to the civilian population due to the shelling that has been continuing from the last 2 to 3 hours now by the Pakistani army at multiple locations across the line of control, both in Jammu as well as in the Kashmir division. Indian army also responding to it accordingly in a very calibrated manner. That's what the Indian army has said. They've confirmed that there has been ceasefire violation in the Poonch sector, but in the northern part of Kashmir there has been no confirmation by the army, but the locals who live close to the border have been facing the shelling from across the border, and that's one of the reasons that they're moving moving away from these forward posts, away from their homes to the safer places.